Hello. Thanks very much for your listening and your attention for the next 10 minutes. Thanks very much for the invite to also talk at this conference. My name is Barra Fitzgibbon. Most of you will know my work, and if you don't, it'll come to light during the talk anyway, so all is good. My talk with you today falls under the topic of who do you want to be, with a particular focus on career progression. And as with any talk I give, this is seen through the prism of engaging in better, or certainly different, conversations with ourselves and with others. Excuse me. So allow me to start with one question. How do you define yourself? So when you're asked, for example, are you outgoing or shy? Where does your mind go to in search of that answer? Now, I'd argue it goes to the past. A past version of you gives you that answer. Your personality from the past, yesterday, an hour ago, 10 years ago, perhaps the last time you experienced yourself being shy or outgoing. And if it is from 10 years ago, is that now your narrative? I was shy then. That's my context. Therefore, I am shy now. Well, what if I asked you just for the next 10 minutes to stop limiting yourself based on what has been, based on your past personality? Consider this. Personality is not given. It's trained. You accept that, and then you can accept it can change. Now, this involves choice, and this can bring up fear because choice is a vulnerable move, and we as humans tend to avoid vulnerability. But if we avoid choice, we limit our capacity to grow, career or personal, learn, change, progress. So I'd ask you to make a stand with me right now, if you will. Refuse to be defined by your past self and start to be defined by your future self. It's an everyday job, certainly initially. Any mindset change requires a little bit of initial practice. Confidence grows, identity becomes flexible. You become capable of learning and growing. You know, do we use the past as an excuse to be stuck in bad habits? I certainly do sometimes and have done a lot. And this is blame, and this lets you off the hook. So defining yourself by your future self, what's he on about? Well, it's pretty easy. I'd ask you to start to define yourself by what you want to be, by what you want to do. Let's just take Elon Musk as an example, okay? Whatever you think about him, whether you like him or whether you don't, look at his career progression and look at the way he engages in conversation. He always talks about the future. You know, he never brings up his past, his PayPal days, unless he's asked. So perhaps something to take from that, the nitty gritty of the how is what I want to get into now. So how do we start to change this narrative? How do we just start to change this conversation? And I want to discuss a few topics, if you'll allow me. First of all, I want to lift the lid on personality. Number two, I want to talk about choosing a goal, what career you want, what life you want. Then I think developing emotional flexibility is an important point to discuss. Reframing trauma, another topic. And then finally, to discuss bringing your subconscious along with you on this journey. So let's start with personality. We are works in progress. If you're the same person you were 2 years ago, what have you learned? Nothing. Life experiences alter mindsets all the time. For me personally, becoming a parent and being hospitalized a year and a half ago now with COVID. And let me give you a most recent case study. My old university in Dublin got in touch, UCD, because my COVID story got some attention in Ireland, and they wanted to do an interview, sort of a question and answer piece for their alumni website. And it went out online, and a pal of mine from those uni days who I hadn't seen since the late 1980s, he got in touch and we had a Zoom call. He's now living in Australia. And during the call, he asked me, you know, what work do I do now? And I was talking about working in the conversational field, what I do, and particular at the moment around work around active listening. And he stopped in his tracks and he said to me, gosh, Barra, I'd never, ever have put you down as a good listener. Now, I've learned to become a good listener. It's taken a lot of work, but I've learned how to do it. And he's defining me based on a past version of me. And that's what we do. We do it to ourselves all the time. And its limitations are quite profound. Personality can be changed by setting goals. Becoming committed to a goal and living with the emotions that that goal brings up. That's how we change. So I'd ask you to make the distinction now between your present self and your future self, because they're different people. Now I want to move into the topic of choosing a goal, or choosing career, choosing the life that you want. Who is your future self? Who do you want to become? Get that down and then start to base your identity on who you want to be rather than who you have been. What's your purpose? What's your goal? What are you trying to accomplish? What's the end goal? Why this goal? Is it worth it? It's the goal that shapes your identity. How? When you go about your day-to-day behavior, keep asking yourself, does my behavior align with my goal? Take the last 24 hours. Which activities would my future self engage in? Which of those activities, if removed, would free up more time and space for where I'm trying to get to or for what I'm trying to achieve? Now, without a goal, very hard to be motivated. Okay, willpower alone doesn't usually work. And once you attain that goal, you stretch and you set a new goal. Brings us up to emotional flexibility. Now, this almost needs its own dedicated workshop, but for now, let's just start to become aware of the emotions that come up in the context of when you set your goal. Common themes would be fear, anxiety, self-doubt. Excuse me. So a simple awareness for now should quieten them down. Never ignore them. Talk to them. Tell them that's what you've decided to do, that your career is stuck. Perhaps you've stalled. You're not the person you want to be, whatever it might be. And trust the process. And when I say talk to them, I mean engage in conversations with your emotions. There are versions of you. They're all authentic. Sometimes they're for a very good reason. Sometimes not. And it's in that context that a simple rationalizing conversation can be profoundly helpful. Brings me up to trauma, and in particular, the limiting nature of trauma. Now, the word trauma, big connotations. Now, trauma can be big, but trauma can be small. 12 years of age in school, Mr. McGinty, my maths teacher, told me I'd never be any good at maths, and he made an example of me in front of the entire class. I'm 50 now, and when my daughter comes into me with a particular issue with a sum, or my son used to when he was younger, that trauma completely comes back into my head. Some argue it's a small trauma. But what if I asked you to think of a past trauma as a positive? Something that happened for you, not to you. If we blame people like McGinty from our past, that says more about us than perhaps it says about what actually happened. Now, this is not about belittling tough experiences. This is about changing how we view them. And it helps with emotional flexibility to avoid being stopped by emotions, to grow and instead embrace, listen to them and learn from them. Trauma is not the event itself, it's the meaning we've taken from it. Something terrible happened, but it's interpretation that makes it traumatic. So how would your future self view that trauma? How would they turn it to their own benefit? Big trauma for me was obviously COVID. And, I've often asked, it was tough, but I asked myself, how did that happen for me instead of to me? And there's no doubt the issues of being a better person, more focused on family, resetting priorities, both personal and career. Profound effects on my life. Positive, profound effects on my life. So finally, I'd bring in the topic of how to bring your subconscious with you on this journey. This is important. Subconscious, what is it? A place, possibly of suppressed emotions and physical pain. And I think expressing and talking out loud your emotions is key. Touched on it already. But what subconscious brings up, which I think is important, is to be aware of our addiction to stress. Media thrives on stress. Our culture is surrounded by stress. You know, we seek out the drama as people. And there's no doubt stress releases the chemical cortisol. And for those who are addicted, you know, if we're not feeling it, we do things to create it. You know, if you're not used to feeling positive and calm and good and being focused on a future self or a future goal, the subconscious will do things to encourage negative thoughts, negative emotions, to challenge that mindset. So shift that emotional framework by talking out loud those emotions in front of the mirror in the bathroom, to close friends, family, wherever, talk them. And also, what I think is a nice tip to help the subconscious come along with you is to become a giver, something I've personally struggled with. Become a giver, because this encourages the subconscious to believe that you deserve good things. So in summary, personality can change. Set your goal. Get emotionally smart. Challenge the narrative around your trauma, if you have one, and bring your subconscious along with you. And let me finish on one sort of quirky personal case study. Since I've been a teenager, right, you all know about magpies, okay? 1 for sorrow, 2 for joy, 3 for girl, 4 for boy. And whenever I see one magpie, excuse me, since the age of about 13, 14, I salute one magpie, because allegedly that takes away the sorrow. It means you're not going to get the pain and the sorrow that seeing this one particular bird will invoke. Ridiculous, I know. And about 3 months ago, you know, I was doing work around this future self work, and I decided to myself, you know, my future self doesn't do that. Future Barra doesn't salute these one magpies. Just doesn't do it. And I just stopped, and I haven't done it for 3 months. And every time I see a magpie, I just go, yeah, my future self doesn't do that, so I'm not going to do it. I don't want to be that person anymore that has to do that. And you know, it's a small, ridiculous example, but there's something in that. It can help you change. It can help you bring about positive change in your life, personal and career. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it very much, and I hope you enjoy very much the rest of the day. Thanks again. I've been Barra Fitzgibbon, and I'll see you later. Cheers.